more you lie, the more you're desensitized to lying, and less activation of your amygdala, of course. We don't like to think of ourselves as liars, of course, but so we justify our lies, right? So they don't actually register as lies because we're justifying them. And the next thing you know, you're believing your own lies and you're living that life. And we see it constantly. So honesty always begins internally, then it moves its way outward to the external world. Honesty is also vital for growth, because without honesty, you'll never truly grow. When we're dishonest, we literally put blinders on and only see what we want to see. Honesty is expressed not only with what you say, but with your actions as well.
Welcome to the Secrets of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Keys. So the question today is, what is your purpose? In other words, who are you? And do people know who you are, not what you do? Today's guest was amazing. Steve and I got into it. Our biggest issue was trying to end the show within a reasonable time as we started to discuss some very, very important concepts that society is dealing with, and that is many times we're so worried about what other people think and the external components in screaming and yelling on social media and on it goes. It's just amazing episode. So I can't speak highly enough about it, and how Stephen was very poignant with some great advice and sage advice for us to kind of go to the next level. On that point, one of the things we talked about is that can you be authentic and real, and what is your purpose? Now, my purpose, or CRG's purpose, is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose. And our whole goal with our tools and resources is for you to realize your potential, for you to really facilitate a process to help you to get to know yourself. And so my encouragement is, we have a couple of online courses, and there'll be more by the time this comes out. And that is, for sure, we have one of our courses is, what do you really value? And it helps you to clarify what are your core behavioral values. And through that course, then we take you through exercises. Are you living them? First of all, what are they? Are you living them? And if you are or you're not, then what does that mean? In other words, what am I doing on a day-to-day basis to have those values feel fulfilled so that I can feel alive? There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no in between. It just is. And so once you know that, and so I just encourage you, it's one of the most transformational tools I took nearly 30 years ago when I first got exposed to CRG. Now, as always, if you like what we're doing, please share, pass it on, let other people know about it, leave a positive comment on whatever platform you're leaning on. And hey, listen, listener feedback is welcome. Post a comment, send an email. Maybe you know somebody who could be a great guest as well. So thank you as always for listening. So here's our guest, Eugene Kuhn. Welcome to the Secrets of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Keys. Well, each week we like to have a guest that helps you to go to the next level, somebody that helps with you with your potential. And today is no exception. We actually got to know each other in the online world because of his new book that he is releasing called Unleash Your Humble Alpha. Welcome to the show, Eugene Kuhn. Stephen?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And you come all the way from my homeland, from Hungary. I mean, we joked about it. We're all four of my grandparents were born in Hungary, immigrated to Canada, and here you are, you're living there.
Yeah, I'm American, immigrated to Hungary.
Well, that's what happened when you meet those really sharp Hungarian women, and then you marry one of them.
That's exactly what happened, indeed.
So we'll get into that as we progress, Stephen. So, Stephen, when we think about your work, we'll come to that in a bit. But you were involved as a decorated Army combat veteran now. But let's just kind of go your journey. You're in Hungary now, but where did you grow up, or where were you born, and what was sort of home life like when you were a kid?
Well, I grew up in central Pennsylvania, which is, we call it Pennsyltucky, because it's very rural and very sort of hillbilly-ish, if you will. And I grew up, in small high school, small schools and stuff. I was held back in third grade. I had a twin brother. Sort of did a deal.
Hang on, you skipped that. You skipped over that. You were held back in third grade.
Yes.
So what was the issue? What was going on?
My mother was married for the second time or third time, I think. and he had a choice. The teacher said, because I wouldn't wear my glasses because I was embarrassed. They were bifocals, and I couldn't see the board, so I basically failed the classes. And but they knew I was smart enough, and they just saw that I wasn't trying because I didn't want to wear my glasses. And then they asked my stepfather, and my mother, you can either hold him back or let him go forward and see what he does. And he said hold him back, and which wouldn't have been so bad. But I have a twin brother. And of course, then I was the dumb one from now on out because he was always a grade ahead of me. Like, how can you be twins if he's a grade ahead of you? So that sort of stamped me for a little bit, growing up.
Wow. Yeah. Well, welcome to having a stepfather that. Did you have sort of any bitterness over that? At that
time? Plus the abuse and the beatings and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he was a real gem.
Oh, well, it's good to have just a winner like that. So
yeah.
How did you? Now, what age were you when you were held back?
I was in third grade, whatever age that is. I don't even know. I guess 8, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
maybe, yeah.
So then how did you make it through that, or what happened subsequently as you moved into high school?
Well, everybody knew me because of my brother. We were sort of, we're the big guys. We were already 6 foot something, and, by the time we got to high school and I played football, or I tried anyway, I had no self-belief or, sort of self-pride or whatever. So I wasn't very good at what I did, but I was big enough that it got in people's way.
Mm.
So it affected me big time because I always saw myself as the dumb one because everyone told me that. So that's, why I wanted to join the military as soon as possible. And I did, actually, because I knew the only way I was going to grow out of that was to leave and make it on my own. Because as long as I'm in a situation where people are telling me one thing, it's really hard to do. Sort of like when you're one of the guys at work or one of the girls at work, and you get promoted to be, the manager. Suddenly people are like, what are you acting like this for? You're not the manager. You're just one of us. That kind of thing. So I knew that trying to fight that sort of stigma, the only way to do that was to leave. People told me who I was.
Now, Steve, what drew you to the military as a solution to this? I mean, there's lots of choices, lots of options. Leave home, go somewhere, do something else. But where did the military sort of make the list?
Structure, the chance to be a hero, the way to push myself to the very edge of my capabilities and more. And I wanted a family, I wanted a family of friends, I guess you could say. Mm. And that's exactly what I got, all of those things.
So how old were you when you joined the military?
I was 18 when I joined, 19 when I left.
Oh, so just 1 year.
Well, no. I joined when I was 18. I was still in school because I had failed third grade. And as soon as I left school, 10 days after graduation, I was 19, and I left immediately for the Army, 10 days after high school graduation.
Okay, there we go. So then how long were you in the force?
Almost 8 years. And the whole time I was stationed in Europe. So I was in Germany, a couple different cities, and then I went to Iraq for the first Gulf War. And then I came back and decided to get out, and I did what they call a European out. I processed from the military in Germany and walked off base. So I didn't go back to the States to help process. I stayed in Europe.
Mm. Now, with the audience, and obviously you will cover some of this as we get into the elements of your book, what were some of the characteristics or traits that you learned while you were in the military that were beneficial for you?
Oh, well, I think, learning how to drive through what you think your limitations are was the biggest one. So being able to do things just because you think you can and not because you think you can't. And I think also structure, discipline, belief, self-belief, attitudes, the brother or sister-like relationships that you build in the military are, undeniably the number one benefit. And you strive to do the same in the outside world, which is in the civilian world, which is very difficult. But it sort of makes you stand out a little bit from everybody else once you're a veteran who actually embraced the structures, and it really is a benefit if you embrace it. Those who embrace it really have, in my opinion, an edge.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that stand out when you get out and then move into civilian life?
Well, I can just give you an example. I got out. I was a doorman, and then I was a security guy at the airport and this kind of stuff. And I was always working as if it was the most important job in the world, because you learn to do whatever you do as good as you can do it, and to solve problems and create solutions for everyone involved. And so when you do that, people look at you like, wow, this guy's like way overqualified for this. So they're always offering you new jobs. Within 3 years of getting out, I not only had my own 3 cocktail bars and a nightclub, but I was running a British PLC as the International Operations Development Director. Mm-hmm. And had like 3,500 people under me, 87 locations. And that was with 0 experience, only pure attitude.
So how do you get into running nightclubs from being in the military?
Well, I mentioned I started as a doorman, and I saw what they were doing, and I said, hey, you guys, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I can do this and do that. And then I decided to open my own cocktail bar, which I did, and it was it was a huge hit. So I opened 2 more, and I got into the club scene, worked with some other guys in there. And I just treated everybody walking the door as, a super VIP, if you will. It didn't matter who it was. So everyone who came there felt very special, and they felt paid attention to, they felt recognized, they felt at home, and that just spoke around. That really, got around. And from that, I got offered, all kinds of positions, jobs, contracts, you name it. Because people want to feel good when they go somewhere. They want to leave somewhere in a better position than when they went. So, psychologically, they want to be happier. You don't go to a nightclub to leave upset. You don't go out to dinner to leave in a worse mood than when you went. So that's one of my life principles is elevate others and add value wherever you can. Leave them in a better place than when you met them.
Now it's I'm not sure if you have the answer, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, Steve. But when we think about life and we think about businesses, why is it that many businesses don't do the basics of being even kind of nice to their clients, where they're in fact even abusive, and then wonder why their business is not doing well? Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I'm a turnaround specialist, so I take companies that aren't working well and aren't making revenue and aren't breaking through revenue or having issues, and often it comes down to that, and that's because they're so focused on making money, trying to make money, trying to manage the processes, manage the people, product sales, manufacturing, whatever it is, that the customer, the client, seems to be the one thing that they can't control, so they sort of ignore it, and it sort of upsets them in a way. We even had people that would delete entire, complaint emails, 50 complaint emails, just delete them. And she was our customer service manager, and just ignored them. And we don't need to talk about what happens then, but I think it's just overwhelm. Most people learn how to run a business, learn how to make money, P&L, and all the financials and stuff. But I don't know of any college courses, or I got my MBA in the UK. I never had a course on customer service, how to treat people. For me, it's natural, but for a lot of people, it's not.
Now, remind us, where were your cocktail bar? Was it in Germany or was it in the UK?
Yes, Berlin, Germany.
Berlin, Germany. So did you learn German then while you were over there?
I did indeed. I speak German like a German. I wrote a bestseller. I did TV. I was a news announcer. My last gig was the election and the inauguration of Trump. I went to Germany and did the TV for them. And then when Soleimani a few months ago, when he was assassinated, I got calls to be in a radio interview and things like that. So yeah, I speak German like a German. Pretty much, my heritage is part German as well. So yeah, I enjoy the language.
I think that last name kind of links to it a bit.
Yeah, it does. I really enjoy the articulation capabilities in German. It's just you can really dissect a conversation down to its smallest detail. It's incredible.
Well, you skipped over a lot of your life there,
yes.
Steve, in a hurry. So you were doing sort of this nightclub and you're owning your own place. What happened after that?
Oh, I got into the corporate world, the PLC in the UK. First it was a South African company, then it was the UK, and I still had my bars almost for 10 years, and I got rid of those. And as I was, moving up in the world, I don't want to say it fell in my lap, but I was always driving forward, so I was always seeing opportunities, and I would just take them. So I never really built a career. I just did what I wanted to do, and the cool things, and if it was a challenge, the bigger the challenge, the more I wanted to do it. And the least amount of experience I had, the more I wanted to do it, because I knew that it'd be a new experience. And if I had a little bit of fear in me, if I could do it or not, then I really wanted to do it because I knew fear meant massive learning. And I ended up going to a manufacturer from America. I brought them to to Germany, and then to Europe, Austria and Germany first. And then I went back to the old corporation as a freelancer, a contractor. And I just kept going I kept going back and forth to all these companies and fixing what they messed up after I left. Basically, it sounds sort of arrogant, but I'm very, very, structured in the way that I work. So when I put procedures in place and reporting and and boards and whatever we use in the clubs and wherever I was, they're there in order to make it easy for the staff to do their job. And what happens is a lot of managers, a lot of leaders, because their identity is a position and not a person, their identity, they tend to strip that all away and pull it on themselves so that they control everything. And what that does is it disrupts a fine-tuned machine that's literally, you can't control each piston of an engine. You turn the key, that's all you do. The rest runs by itself. That's how a company can actually run. But a lot of these leaders, especially younger ones coming out of college or whatever, they feel not only do they have to represent the position, but they have to pull everything on themselves and control everything. And the big problem there is they lose their true identity. And then suddenly you've heard someone say before, you know who I am, I'm the CEO of whatever. And you're like, well, actually, that's what you are. Who are you really? And that always stumps them. I mean, I'd say 80% of all, 90% of all leaders have no idea who they are. And that's what our book is all about.
Well, when you think about it, a lot of times, and that's true globally, this podcast goes around the world, is that people's identity is linked to their title. So it's what they do versus who they are. So I get that. Why do you think that is? There's, both of us do this work in this area of purpose, and you're really talking about your humble alpha, and we'll get into that in a minute. But what do you think are some of the reasons that people are stuck on this title identity? I'll call it maybe a crisis or dilemma.
Well, it's because, we are taught and society shows us that accolades and perception come from the outside. So if someone sees you as someone successful in a position, then you're a successful person. So we chase these outside instruments, betterment, positions, titles, classes, courses, degrees, whatever it is, we chase them in order to have something on the outside show. And that's okay for that level of, I guess, job, or if you want to stay in that consciousness. But if you really want to excel and be present and own your presence in life everywhere you go as the same person, then you really want to, figure out who you are, what your true identity is. And there's a litmus test that you can use, and that is, if your wife or husband was a fly on the wall in your office, would they recognize you? And if you had an employee come to your home as a fly on the wall, would you be embarrassed what they saw? Because a lot of people are the boss in that position and title at work, and when they go home, they're not, and they feel inadequate, they feel upset. So what do? They go back to work and put more time in to be more successful, to compensate for what's not integrated in their private life. And again, that's what we touch upon.
Cool. So when we think about all these things you were going back and forth, when did you really kind of get into your own firm and start helping people sort of independently versus being an employee for individuals?
Well, I was, I guess, probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I started as a side gig. I would train the people that were in the company on my own, and then the company started paying me for it. Because I just wanted them to excel. I really wanted to see these people excel in who they were. And the company started paying for it, and then I started training, thousands of people. It was ridiculous. But that was great because I get to hone my skills and to hone my message. And then almost 3 years ago, I stopped all consulting. I stopped all of that stuff, and now I do only, it's still consulting, but it's more like coach consulting, how we help leaders find their true identity to increase their, in the end, it's revenue. It's their own personal revenue. It's their relational capital. It's growing their life enterprise. We like to say that life enterprise is like a business enterprise. We're all CEOs, and we answer to the stakeholders. And, as a CEO of a business enterprise, you better make damn sure you make the stakeholders happy. So the same thing is in our life enterprise. We have to, be there for those in our life. We have to make them happy. So again, we invest in relational capital. We elevate them. We find solutions for them. And we leave them in a better place than when we met them. And that really changes your life when you do that. And the top number one thing that I could say that really impacts anyone's life in a positive way is to have no expectations unless they're verbalized. So either you explain your expectations or you have no expectations. And that one simple act, which is really difficult, of course, but that one simple act will change your life for the better, because number one, you don't ever have to worry about what anyone's thinking about, because you have no expectations of what you're thinking. And number two, when you do have expectations, you can make them clear and verbally, so there's no mistaking. So either have what you want or it doesn't matter.
Well, it was interesting, as a sidebar, there was a relationship expert online not that long ago I was listening to, and he said the number one reason that there are divorces and separations is unmet expectations, but in many cases they're unstated as well.
Yeah, of course.
So it happens in all of our life, right? The reason you're frustrated with this other person is they didn't do what you thought they should do, which is in your mind.
Right, exactly. And that's specifically detrimental when it comes to relationships.
All kinds, of course. And all of us, and I appreciate your comment, is that it's not easy. All of us have to work on that, myself included. You teach it, I teach it, but I think our wives would both say, sometimes it's not working as well as you're teaching.
Of course. It's a constant, just like your identity, just like your purpose. It's a constant adaptation. It's a constant adjustment, improvise sometimes as well, just to get through. I mean, it's not a static issue. So once you find your identity, you start crystallizing your purpose. Once you find your purpose, your identity is amplified through that purpose. And that purpose can be tied to your job, your personal life, private life, your hobbies. Once that's the case, then you can let go of the how. So you detach from the how you're going to get somewhere, because when you're operating for what I call the core principles of HIT, honesty, integrity, and transparency, honesty with yourself and why you do what you do, and the transparency is how you step into the world with that honesty, and integrity is a byproduct, which, by the way, the basis for any healthy relationship on the planet is integrity. So, and integrity is a byproduct, something you can be. It's something that you become through your actions, and that's always changing. And integrity isn't just, I'm the straight guy, I'm always right. Integrity is doing what you say you're going to do and not doing what you say you're not going to do. And of course, if you do screw up, then own it. It's as simple as that. People think, well, you can't be, Mr. Integrity all the time. How can you be so perfect? It's not about being perfect. It's about realizing that everyone makes mistakes and owning them. Simple.
So when you think about it, and this is contrary to some of the leadership research out there, that one of the number one reasons for leadership's failing, this was Peter Carrera's research, was arrogance or hubris. So you're talking about humility, which is the opposite side. But there's this other side of integrity. Yet I watch and I see, and it almost makes me puke. And pardon for the language, listeners, just the media, especially sort of in North America, for sure in the U.S., there doesn't seem to be any integrity whatsoever. Where is this coming from? We both know and we both teach that integrity is foundational. Yet I see the momentum in the public domain to be the opposite. How can you explain this?
Well, again, it's all to the outside, right? It's all about what it looks like. It's what they can talk about, who they can give accolades to. We've come to a society, and unfortunately, most of our society is like that. If you're a star, you're somebody special. If you can say whatever you want, you're right. And the same thing goes for politicians, is that people like to bitch about them, but in the end, they do what they say or they listen to them. And it's all because it's all on the outside. We're being pushed into this external because it's dangerous to know who you are. It's dangerous to realize that you control your own destiny and you can create your own reality. That's dangerous to the outside world. So we're being pushed as much as possible to keep going on the outside and seeking those things that make us bigger, better, stronger, louder, whatever, brighter. But they literally, all they are is skins you're putting on and covering up who you really are. And once you uncover who you really are, your true identity, I can tell you that your life changes, because you don't mess with anything that does not have to do with who you are, your identity, and your purpose. And once you do that, you can say no all the time. I mean, being successful has more to do with saying no than saying yes. I can tell you that right now.
I think that's an important point that you're making, Stephen, for the listeners, is that, and we make this statement in our purpose program, my ability to say no is equally or greater than my ability to say yes, which is what you just said. So with that, where did this whole idea of writing this book, Unleash the Humble Alpha, come from?
It all started when, I take a trip every year to Peru. We work with sacred plant medicine, ayahuasca and San Pedro. That's the feminine and masculine energy. Secret plants, and I also have business leaders to join us down there. And one of these leaders came, and we ended up being best friends, and now we're in business together. And I was teaching him at the time, honesty, integrity, transparency, which is where my nickname came from, the Hitman. And he said, man, this is awesome, we got to write a book about this. So we started looking at how we could write about HIT. And HIT wasn't something I made up, it was the byproduct of my life up until then. So I decided with Lane Balone, who's my partner and co-author, we said, well, let's look at our lives and see other things that we did and how we turned out and how we were successful. So we came up with 5 core models that we use. One of them is HIT. One of them is, I already mentioned, relational capital. The other one I mentioned was life enterprise. And then we have creating space. Creating space is going into a meeting, a speech, onto a podcast like this with 0 expectations, no preconceived notions, no cookie cutter solutions, simply one intention, because the only thing we control is our intention and not the outcome. And your intention is how you solve problems. And when you do that, you create a space around the people that you're with, like in the podcasts and things, and then we end up having solutions and answers and discussions that otherwise never would have happened if I had, and you had, a preconceived notion about how it's supposed to be. So there's some of the, and of course, the major one that we talk about is the name of our company, and that's quality of life. Every video I do a video every day. I'm on episode 401. And at the end of every episode, every call, everything I do all the time, I always end it with, it's all about quality of life. So, that's where the name of the company came from. And it's just a compilation of our life. So the book is really interesting because it tells a story about how we learned the model. So we tell the story. One was in Iraq with a little girl. One was in boot camp. One was when I was with the Royals. One was, these different kind of things. And what happened to me and how I learned it, or how he had something happen to him, how he learned it, what we learned out of it, what we made out of it so we could teach others not to make those mistakes, and then how to do it. So each chapter has a story, how to, what we made out of it, what the steps are, and then, of course, action plan to go with it. So it's a really results-oriented book. So when you read this book and you implement what you see and you take those action steps, you're going to become what we like to call the humble alpha, and that is alpha on the inside and humble on the outside, owning your presence in life to become an epic leader that's already inside of you.
Appreciate all of those comments, Steve. And I just want to back up a little bit and delve in. You talked about 5 different sort of core models. So let's just spend a moment around HIT. And I think this is important because this is the area that we work in as well. Honesty, integrity, and transparency. Again, life seems to be the opposite out there as far as, can you trust anybody? Transparency, to let you know who I really, really am. Do I even want to do it? I remember being at an invite-only event with Marshall Goldsmith, one of the top executive coaches in the world. And he said, listen, if the client's not acting in integrity, and what he meant by that is if I asked him to do or her to do something and they didn't produce it by the next time we're meeting as a coach, and that was consistently occurring, then we discontinued the relationship because your words aren't worth anything. So speak to honesty, integrity, and transparency in a more deep manner so that the listeners can embrace this, as you said, going through the other side. And one other comment before I go on, which kind of eluded me, and that was around this expectations. In Secrets of Success, maybe the listeners do or don't know, but I never do pre-scripted questions for the exact reason you just said.
Right.
Now, I have an idea, which I guess is intention, about where I want to go and just sort of the flow of it. But I have no idea what you're going to say to something, and then based on that, then will be a follow-up question. You can't do that.
I like to say you have your toolbox ready, right? You have your toolbox with all your tools in it, and you're ready to go. You're just not deploying them yet until you have to. That's what I always say.
Well, the example is I was in an interview, Stephen, the other day, and she had all these pre-described questions that she was asking one after another. It was like I was an artificial intelligence robot. It was really quite terrible. And
impersonal.
Nice,
personal too.
Completely, and not really the flow. That's not how a natural conversation unflows. So,
well, no, because they're looking at the next question. They're looking at the next question already while you're answering the first question. So there's no. It's like you give this wonderful answer, and they go, "Great." Next question is, they just there's no reaction to it. There's no flow.
Not a powerful process for having an interview and really pulling out and having, what do you call it, transparency or integrity. So speak about honesty, integrity, and transparency in just a little bit more depth.
Okay, sure. So again, honesty is being true to who you are and how you live. Transparency is communicating your honesty for anyone to observe, and integrity is a result of your ongoing reputation. And when you live by head, you have the clarity of who you are and exactly what you want in life, because you're not trying to please anyone. You're operating from head, meaning every step you take, every action you take, every forward movement that you have, it comes from the place of integrity. So it doesn't matter what other people think or what they think your true intentions are. You know what they are, so you don't have to. As opposed to, I want to do this to make money, or I want to do this to leverage this relationship so I could get that. When you start doing that, which everyone does, as long as you do it from a place of integrity, it's okay. But when you don't, then when people say, hey, you're just trying to trick me, you have no feet to stand on. Right? So that's why it's very important that you are very honest about what you do in life with yourself first, because we love to lie to ourselves. For me, one of the things that I noticed is that my life got very happy. So I got very happy in life. I'm always happy, and it seems like everyone's there to help me every step of the way. I hardly ever have to ask, because I'm always adding value, elevating others, helping others and stuff. And of course, you attract others that live that way. So when you start attracting people that live that way, the dimensions of what you see as possible in life explode. And I mean business and life, everything in general. So it's just an amazing, let's say, authentic connections, and you gain significance with yourself, and of course true happiness. You turn scarcity into abundance, and it just feels like you're always able to give value in the very moment when someone needs it, because you're not preconceived, you're not trying to get anything, you're operating from your place. Most people do things in life as a tit for tat. I go to work, I get paid, right? Or I'm going to do this for you, you do that for me. So it's hard to give value to someone when you have expectation, because you're that they feel that energy, they feel that push and pull. So a lot of people, they follow trends, they try to be someone else or act like someone else, or they want to be someone through someone else, and they're not living who they are, like we said before. They don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to cut through all the BS and drop all of the masks and just be who you truly are. And of course, we go deeper into that in the book as well. But there's so many things. It goes really, really deep. I mean, basically, the one reason why honesty is so important is because your brain is wired to either tell the truth or to lie. It's as simple as that. But our brains get wired like that by our actions. So if we tell the truth all the time, that's how our brain's wired, right? But if we lie all the time, I don't mean like big lies, like I didn't kill him, mm-hmm. Little lies, just small little lies to yourself or to others. That is then how our brain is wired. But naturally, your body always wants to be honest. So your body is also adaptive if you continue to lie. So you're going to change not only your mind and those neurons, but it's going to change your body. So your body language is going to start showing it as well. The more you lie, the more you're desensitized to lying, and less activation of your amygdala, of course. We don't like to think of ourselves as liars, of course, but so we justify our lies, right? So they don't actually register as lies because we're justifying them. And the next thing you know, you're believing your own lies and you're living that life. And we see it constantly, We see it constantly. So honesty always begins internally, then it moves its way outward to the external world. Honesty is also vital for growth, because without honesty, you'll never truly grow. When we're dishonest, we literally put blinders on and only see what we want to see. Honesty is expressed not only with what you say, but with your actions as well. The need to be precise in language is very important, which is why I always have to slow down when I speak, because I love using the language to articulate, and sometimes I just get moving so quick. So it also motivates us to become the best version of ourselves, for real, not pretending. Because by being honest with ourselves, we bring light to the bad, and only then can we change it to become our best self. And let's face it, honesty is equal to reliability. Because you're always known to be honest, you have to explain yourself less, right? Make sense? So,
Absolutely. I want to stop you for a second, Stephen, and I think this is so important, and that's why I'm just sort of taking a breath at the moment on behalf of the listeners. How do I start, Stephen? How do I even know what my condition is, and what would be some of the first things that I potentially could do to go on this path of HIT and be successful? Outside of buying your book, which I'm going to encourage everybody to do.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the plug.
What are a couple of the things? And by the way, the book is Unleash Your Humble Alpha, just a reminder. So what are a couple of steps that the listeners can just embrace as soon as this show is over to start living HIT? And, maybe they don't even know that they don't know that they don't know, that they're completely out of integrity.
Well, it's like I said, we justify our lives, so the next thing you know, we believe it, and that's who we are, that's our life, and it doesn't really even bother them anymore. But it bothers everybody else, and they just don't see it, and that's why things don't work on the outside. That's why they don't rise up. That's why they don't get promoted. That's why they're just sort of not. They're on a plateau. These are all things that come from the lack of true integral relationships that grow your business and your life and your relationships.
Stephen, sorry to interrupt, but would things like exaggeration fit into this honesty thing, where I've met some people where they just seem to exaggerate, and it just doesn't seem to be congruent with what's really going on? Where does that fit into this category?
Well, certainly. I mean, it's a lie, So people say, "Well, it's not really a lie. I'm just exaggerating a little bit to make a point." Well, no, the reason that people do this, the reason that people speak above and beyond of what they do, is because they have a fear inside, self-worth, right? There's something that they don't like about themselves. They've been told something, or they've lived a certain way a long time, and they want to change it, so they want to try to be something that they think makes them look better. And that comes, again, from the outside. So, again, you have to focus on the inside. How do you feel when you say that? So if you're an exaggerator, how do you feel when you exaggerate? Do you feel good? Of course you don't. So you need to stop that and simply start being who you are. And you're going to see, even though it's not sensational like it is when you exaggerate, people are going to be like, wow, kind of honest, man. This person is honest, and they're transparent. I love this person. And that's what happens when you start facing your own reality. And what are you creating for yourself when you exaggerate? What are you creating for yourself when you lie? You're creating a house of cards that will tumble one day, sooner or later. And the problem with that, again, is that won't scare anybody, because everybody's only thinking about the next 3 weeks anyway, or 2 weeks, or 1 week. And so we have to shift our mindset. When I was working with the Royals and hanging out and friends and dating and all that kind of stuff, they thought in generations, So when they do something, they're always thinking about their grandkids, And it just blew me away how they don't jump and take action. They'll look, they'll assess, they'll plan, and then they take action without the benefit of what we like to call immediate results, immediate gratification, right? And this is something that I really was blessed to learn from some very, very high up people in the royal families. And I guess it carried over to me. And since I've embraced that and try to think generational, maybe not my grandkids, but my children's children, it really changes the way you do things, number one. Number two, it changes if you do things or not. Because if it's instant gratification and it has no future, it's a waste of time. I don't care how much money I make. It's a waste of time if it's not building upon the foundation of what I'm building, what people would call legacy, I guess, but I'm not doing it for legacy. Legacy is something you're going to be remembered by. Legacy is something that people simply usually acquired wealth, or you built something or something. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about my children having the life that I didn't have. I'm not worried about it. I'm working on it, right? It's a life that I want to have. So when it comes to that, when it comes to transparency, that's how you communicate your honesty. Let me put it this way. So if you want to start doing this, look at yourself and just observe yourself when you talk to people. Observe yourself when you're on social media and making the comments. Observe yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you commenting on that post about Trump? Why are you commenting on that post about COVID, saying, the deaths are high or the deaths are low? Why are you doing that? What's the need that's within you that's making you want to comment? I mean, I catch myself too. I'm like, well, look at this ridiculous comment. I'm going to comment. Then I go, wait a second. Why did I want to comment? Because I want to prove something. Why do I want to prove something? Because I feel like I might have some knowledge that they don't. And I want to show them. Why? Why do I want to show them? Well, maybe it's a little bit, I'm feeling a little empty at the moment. Okay, well, let's do something about that. right? Let's not go out there and make fools of ourselves commenting and saying things and doing things to try to make ourselves feel better. Make yourself feel better for real. Yeah. So that's just like a banal example of how you can do it. Before you make a comment, think about it. Why are you doing this for real? Why are you really making this comment? And 99% of all comments on social media are all just to get your frustrations out because you're upset, no one's listening to you at home, you're not the boss at home, whatever it is. There's all these kind of things that really, really bother people, so they take it out on others and they try to find the strength that they have and then try to flex it online to show other people how smart or good or strong or whatever they are.
So if I'm activating in, okay, so I see a post, I don't agree with it or whatever, and rather than posting and being in that space, what are you suggesting I'm do then? You said I'm going to do something about it. Can you give us an example then, Steve?
Well, for me, it all starts with learning. What I like to do when I see a post like that and I actually have time to look at the posts, I will start by engaging that person and seeing where they're coming from. So where's this coming from? Where's that comment coming from? Where's the post coming from? And just in a neutral manner, just ask questions. So I could actually learn, like, why did I think the way I did? Why did I react the way I did? Is it because I have a preconceived notion and that's what I'm sticking to? Or is it because I'm conservative and not Democrat, or Democrat and not conservative, or whatever? And you start peeling back the onion, right? And you say, okay, cool. Okay, they said this, all that. That makes sense. I have no reason to be mad at them because I understand where they're coming from now. So you literally start working on these things, piece for piece, onion peel for onion peel, and you're going to start seeing a person inside of you that's just dying to come out. And you know what? A really cool person too, a person that people will love. Why? Because when you're authentic, when you're true to who you are and you embrace your identity and your identity is amplified through your purpose, people will flock to you, And then if you take heed and you invest in relational capital and you elevate those in your life enterprise, you create space with everyone you meet, and you focus on integration of quality of life, people want to be with you no matter what, period. I mean, I moved to a small village from Budapest. So Budapest has 1.6 million people, I think, and I moved to a village with 2,000 people. And everyone knows me here within a couple of days because I talk to everybody, I elevate everybody, I say hello, wave at people. And I do that all the time, not because I'm trying to gain something, it's because I'm investing in my relational capital, in my life enterprise. And what that does is that creates radiant value. And that radiant value goes from me to the person I greet, to their spouse, to their children, to their dog, it's just this whole radiant value. And once you keep this radiant value rolling, that ripple effect, it changes not only you, but your community. And let's face it, you want to change global warming, you got to start in your house. You got to start in your community. You want to change the way the attitudes are in the world, you got to start with you. You want to change politics, you got to start with you. The way you talk about politics, the way you look at politics, the way you're partisan or nonpartisan, whatever it is you are. Everything starts with us. We only have impact in our life directly first. That's where true change comes. Most people want to go out and demonstrate because they want to feel like they're doing something meaningful because their life seems so meaningless. And they're like, what can I do for global warming? What can I do to stop, politicians from lying? What can I do in my life? Well, you can do a lot of things in life personally. Global warming, start recycling, for instance, right? Things like that. It don't waste water. Turn the water off when you shower and soaping. All kinds of things you can do. But people don't take the time to do that. They'd rather hang a shield out or a sign out and say, look at me, I'm doing this. And that makes me feel good because now I'm doing something special. And
I've often wondered, Stephen, where all these people have these times to demonstrate. I said, man, don't you work for a living? I said, man, my head is like, man, I don't have time to hang out there for several days to do it. So I get that.
Typically, I don't want to say always, but typically they're the people who do a job for money. And they'll do it for the minimum amount of time, and they'll make their money, and then they need purpose because they have nothing else. I don't want to say they have nothing else, but they don't feel purposeful in their life, so they go out and grasp on something that seems like a big purpose, and that is, global warming, Antifa, and all this kind of stuff. Everyone's seeking purpose. They're seeking purpose. Mm-hmm. Instead of looking inward and finding what it is, they're going outward, and that's what I'm saying. Our world is being programmed to be that way, and that's where this all comes from. That's where this lack of integrity comes from. That's where this lies, blatant lies are coming from that you see in the news. It's fake, they know it's fake, and they're still doing it. And it's because only the people are being trained to only look at the outside and believe what you hear, and then the rest doesn't matter. Mm. And I just refuse to be like that. And it's a growing population. I can tell you from personal experience, a growing population of people that aren't playing that game either.
Oh, I get it. And, when I wrote my book, The Quest for Purpose, one of the character traits in there is not worry about what other people say. It's easier said than done if you haven't been practicing it. But I couldn't agree more, Stephen, with that. Now, Stephen, if you can believe it, we only have a few minutes left in the show. We're already there. We're just gaining momentum. Obviously, people have to get your book. So if they want to find out about you and where they can connect with you, and then you mentioned that you might even have a gift, so we won't put the whole URL. We'll put it in the show notes. How can people find out about you and or get your book, Stephen?
They can find out about me, Stephen-Kuhn.com. Stephen with a V, Kuhn.com. That's my personal website. Then the book is under humblealphabook.com, simple. And they can get the book there at humblealphabook.com as well. It's a crowdfunding campaign that we're doing together with generosityfeeds.org. And every book that you purchase, 100% of the proceeds go to these children. And each book that you purchase feeds 3 children. So we're pretty proud of that. And we're pumped to see how many children we can feed. We've hit over 1,000 children now. So, we're excited to move forward on this.
Great. So, Stephen, what would be some closing points of wisdom for the listeners, just to encourage them to realize their potential in life beyond what? Well,
I think it's relative, but I think it's good tips. And one is that, and this goes for the leaders out there, is that you can always delegate the task, but then never the responsibility. That's one of my favorite sayings, because responsibility as a leader is always with you. And another one is, when you're a leader 24/7. There's no off time. There's no weekends. You are a leader, and that means that either you have an identity and a purpose as a leader, or you're not a leader. So you can't be a leader on the outside. It's impossible. You've seen them. We've all experienced them, and they're the worst. So start honing your humble alpha, finding out your true identity, crystallizing your purpose, and creating certainty. And once you have certainty, you have a knowing. You just know the steps that you take are leading you where you're supposed to be going. And therefore, completely detached from the how you're going to get there.
Well, Stephen, obviously we've run out of time, but thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, and the content of what you've put together in your book with us today.
My absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Well, stay on the line, Stephen. So, Secrets of Success listeners, my encouragement is that Stephen has spoken some pretty amazing truth to us today. And if you missed it, go back, listen to it again, is that you are all that is needed. In other words, you don't have to look externally for the fulfillment. It really comes from inside out, as Stephen has shared with us. So we encourage you that you would make a difference out there, and the best way to do that is with you, not pretending to be somebody else. Now, as always, we thank you for sharing your most valuable commodity, your time, with us. So if you like what we're doing, please share, pass it on, leave a positive comment on whatever platform you're listening on. Thank you for listening to Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Keys.
Thanks for exploring the secrets of success with us. If you want to keep the momentum going, log on to crgleader.com. Scroll to the bottom and sign up for our inspirational emails. You can also take your success to the next level by following us on Facebook and Twitter and connecting with Ken on LinkedIn. We hope you have a great week and look forward to you joining us next time for the Secrets of Success podcast with Dr. Ken Keys.